This semester, our group learned more about Chinese culture. Our initial impression was that Chinese culture was a very symbolic and traditional culture. Other than Chinese food, we realized that we did not know much about the culture and did not expose ourselves to Chinese culture much. We were unaware of the ethical issues and censorship in China. We knew that communism would implement some censorship, but we were unaware of how this could affect businesses and daily lives. To learn a little bit more, we visited local Chinese restaurants, did research on censorship in China, and interviewed 4 people to see their perspectives. The restaurant visit taught us a lot about Chinese culture and eating norms in China.
We went to a restaurant called Quick Walk for our cultural experience. Quick Walk's decor consisted of very unique elements. The most prominent things were the colors, the lanterns, and the art. We quickly realized that these things symbolize something within Chinese culture. Some of them symbolize love, happiness, joy, prosperity, and royalty. Moving on to the menu, upon first glance, one would notice an array of options, including appetizers, soups, side orders, beef, pork, poultry, noodles, fried rice, and more. They were using a steaming method, stir-fry method, and wok bowl to cook these foods. The food was given to us in boxes with Chinese letters on it, and we were given chopsticks to use. This is very different from American culture. We enjoy this experience especially because we are paying close attention to the cultural differences and the many symbolic meanings within the food and the decor.
Another interesting aspect about China that we found is how food plays a role in culture and tradition. Our interviewees briefly touched on their favorite foods, which ranged from fried rice to dumplings and even duck. While our group was not surprised to find out that the Chinese food was so delicious, we learned that there are some strict traditions that Chinese people do follow. For example, Ma Shu explained that burping after your meal shows respect to the people that prepared it for you. Obviously, traditions like these do not relate to American culture, which made it so intriguing to learn such unique customs. When diving deeper into our research, we acknowledge that developing countries are entering a globalized world, and international trade plays an essential role in socio-environmental interactions in these countries. A recent study has proven that international trade will ensure that food security is sustained in China without destroying its environment. The nation's food demand is at an all-time high and continuously spikes exponentially, including its need for livestock products and relative food crops. However, if China receives imports from other countries, it will pose significant and sustainable change for the environment. Obviously, these disruptions primarily impact China, but also the rest of the world. In this class, we emphasize the importance of globalization, and when researching these issues, we now understand that globalization is necessary to create and maintain a sustainable world.
Now that we know how Chinese cuisine affects not only its culture, but its economy, one might ask why we should care about China simply from a business perspective. Well, this has to do with the fact that China is becoming more and more powerful, and the business that's being conducted here has the ability to impact the world. So as China begins and continues to globalize more and more, American firms will continue to conduct business there and with Chinese companies. So with that being said, in order to do business in China, there's a lot of red tape to go through. And as a communist society, the Chinese government heavily restricts and regulates private businesses. An example of this and the ethical issue that we researched would be regarding the censorship of LinkedIn in China. LinkedIn was once in China and utilized there. However, with the heavy regulation that the government implemented on the company, LinkedIn decided that it would be better to pull out and not be used there.
Well, let's shift back to one story we're watching play out here today, and that is Microsoft's LinkedIn changing up the way it operates over there in China, as it blames a more challenging operating environment in that country. Of course, we've been watching that play out across China's tech sector. And for more on that one.
So to share more on their opinion regarding this issue, I will now introduce Zheng Zhang, who was raised in mainland China and now lives in Dallas, Texas, and has worked at TCU as a professor for the past 8 years.
Because growing up in growing up China, and I'm very used to it. I think it really depends if someone that it's, say you are growing up in the US and then you suddenly go to China, you will be not used to it. But in China, I do not feel that much of the difference, really, because we have our own social media. I've never worked in like professionally in China before. I'm not sure how important it is for people to have a LinkedIn profile. I think it's more important for people, say, for work for a company that with some investment from like other countries. But if you only like when people looking for jobs, we usually just send our resumes. Again, we also have our own websites to look for jobs. So yeah, I do not really think that it's a big trouble for our daily life, and if it's important for the national security, I think it's understandable.
Before hearing personal accounts of what it was like to live in China, we knew little to nothing about the country. While we saw China as a deeply traditional and historic country, we knew little about the actual people and culture. After visiting a restaurant, we were able to experience firsthand just how different the Chinese culture and cuisine is from our own. Through research and interviews, we were able to develop a better understanding of China overall, specifically in regards to their ethical issues surrounding censorship. The Chinese government heavily restricts what their citizens can view and access on the internet, with over 300,000 websites currently being unable to be accessed inside the country. While we obviously view this as an infringement of rights, Chinese citizens just don't know anything different. It's how they've lived their entire life. They can't even access most of the same social media platforms that we can here in the States. And conducting business in China is a whole different struggle. With so many barriers of entry, many businesses are just cutting their losses and have stopped trying to compete in China altogether. After hearing firsthand accounts and researching the restrictive nature of the Chinese government, our view of China has shifted more into a negative light.